What is up, everyone? Crunchy Frog here, and most of us started playing Call of Duty well over a decade ago during the quote-unquote golden age of Call of Duty, which is typically saw as COD 4 the whole way up to about Black Ops 2 and occasional pockets since then. But we would rush home from school or work in some cases and immediately hop on Xbox or PlayStation to see if our friends were online. Countless hours were spent making new friends or just forging tighter bonds with our existing friends over the internet playing Call of Duty multiplayer and Call of Duty Zombies. But lately, that same hyper-social aspect of COD has seemingly been non-existent or, at the very least, heavily diminished in recent Call of Duties. Now, some may dismiss that fact as merely, we're just not responsibility-free teenagers playing after school anymore, and I think that's true to an extent, but I think there's a whole lot more at play here. We've seen the franchise slowly deviate away from the social playground it once was to a much less social space, thus removing some of the best elements of Call of Duty. So today we'll kind of dive in and uncover what exactly it is about newer CODs that may have made the once great social aspect of the game near non-existent. As always, guys, if you do enjoy this kind of content, make sure to leave a like as it greatly helps the channel grow, and subscribe if you'd like to see more Call of Duty gaming commentaries like this. I also break down some other games as well, so make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content just like this every week. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Now, obviously, we need to start off by examining what aspect of COD made it so good during the Golden Age. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why those games are seen as better, but one of the biggest ones was the social aspect. COD 4 came out at the perfect time in gaming history when services like Xbox Live and PlayStation Network were really just beginning to take off. Online gaming with friends was still a relatively new concept, and everyone embraced it wholeheartedly. Now that headsets were readily available, either in the newer Xbox 360 packs or at the store, we were able to connect with strangers on the internet in a whole new way in the form of actually voice chatting. And obviously, one of the biggest things from this era of Call of Duty is you hear countless stories of real-life friend groups actually forming out of the strangers that played COD together. You've undoubtedly seen countless memes about how, people you used to play with every single day after school or after class in college now signed off for 10 plus years now without ever getting back on. Real friends that we made online, bonding through COD, or getting to know each other through playing Call of Duty are just no longer there. And I know I myself have formed several of these bonds as well. I started playing Call of Duty when I was 13 personally. So those early teenage years when you're really just looking for people to talk to and hang out with and form social bonds with were spent playing online Call of Duty, whether it be multiplayer or zombies, or anything like that. It seemed that everyone back in the day had their mic on and would talk in-game. Now, obviously, that bred some pretty toxic situations in the form of some pretty vulgar trash talking and things like that, but I think it all came together as just one of the best parts about COD, right? You'd get in, play some games, talk with other people, and either you made friends with your teammates that you played alongside, or you made enemies or rivalries out of the really good guy that was on the other team that kept killing you. Either way, it was just a great place to go and meet people. And again, entire real-life friend groups were made because of this. And in recent years, that's all kind of changed. And we'll kind of go over what exactly has changed to make that just not as viable anymore. So the first big thing that we have to talk about and get out of the way that was not present in that golden age of Call of Duty is skill-based matchmaking, or more recently, engagement-only matchmaking. So you've probably heard countless stories of how these matchmaking and engagement systems have completely ruined playing with your friends. Back in the day, if you had a group of friends, there was probably a wide array of skill levels, right? You always had that one or two guys that were just insane at the game. Maybe you had that one friend who just really sucked at COD, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. Right? You were constantly going up against random opponents with random skill levels. And at the end of the day, you ended up having fun. You won some, you lost some, but it still felt like an overall fun experience for all involved. Now, obviously, the kids kind of at the lower end of the skill spectrum still probably struggled a little bit just because, they weren't doing as well as the kid at the top of the scoreboard, but it wasn't artificially created, and, it was just because they were bad at the game, and eventually they would get better. Now, nowadays, I play with a group, and I would consider myself above average. I've always had about a 1.2 to a 1.5, 1.6 KDR in most Call of Duty games that I've played, but I actually play with two guys that are substantially better than me, and one of them is the guy I play with almost every day. And he is much better than me, and it makes the experience absolutely abysmal. Now, again, I'm not a bad player and never have been, but the skill gap now with skill based matchmaking just makes it insurmountable. And so I'm constantly versing people that are better than me while he's having kind of good games every single time because I drag down his skill base and he's either sweating or just getting great games while I'm kind of getting stomped every single game. And that's actually driven a few of our friends away from playing with us entirely. One of our friends that we play with is a little bit lower on the skill spectrum than the two of us, even though he's getting better. But it just makes every single map unbearable to the point to where he has sworn off playing with my friend and I. So obviously right there we already have a case where, something that could unite us again, we are real life friends, but could unite us even further by playing this game together a few nights a week. It's kind of shattered that dynamic. Already we can't play because it's ruined the experience because the game is constantly trying to match us up with quote unquote fair opponents. And when you have a friend group with a wide variety of skill levels, it just makes it hell for one group and honestly a little too easy for the other group. Which, in my experience, makes it worse because the people at the bottom of the scoreboard that are complaining and raging and not having a good time because they're up against significantly higher skill level than them all the time because of skill based matchmaking, and they can't relate to the people, the better skilled players at the top. The better skilled friends, essentially, because they have to play down to the level once the skill based matchmaking pool is diluted, and they're kind of just having good matches every single time, and it kind of creates a rift between friends in that regard as well. One friend's constantly angry and the other one's like, I don't know what you're talking about, these are super easy, I've gone 20 and 10 every single match. So with this system implemented, it very anecdotally to me, but I'm sure it's happened to a lot of you as well, it has driven a stake through our friend group, and we can't really play together anymore. And when we do play together, usually somebody's KDR is going to suffer pretty heavily. So that pretty much, zips up the fact of ever having a 6-stack pub stomping group ever again. Now, if you don't know what that means, back in the day, we used to find 5 other friends that would be gaming, and we'd all get on with them at the same time, and we'd 6-stack, basically fill up an entire team ourselves and go through and play the game, right? Obviously, you'd have great comms because you're all talking together, you're all friends already, and it would just make for a great experience. But now we can't really do that unless you're all roughly around the same skill level. Now, obviously, I'm sure there are some friend groups where everyone is pretty much the same skill at Call of Duty, but I know myself and several other YouTubers that I watch constantly have complained about this, that some of their friends that are maybe not so good or don't have the time to invest in getting good at Call of Duty can't play with them anymore because the lobbies are just too sweaty. So instead of a random array of people and just, luck of the draw over whether your opponents are better than you or not, now it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they're always going to be somewhere in between the best guy in the friend group and the worst guy. There's also no more incentive for quote-unquote pub stomping, right? We know that every single match is going to be sweaty and just kind of overall horrible relative to whatever your current skill levels are. So there's no more incentive of, me and my 5 friends are pretty good at this game. Let's go in and just dominate for an entire, night or weekend or what have you. That kind of possibility is just gone now. Because we know we're never going to have that. And the game is going to push us down a pipeline that means we're going to win one game, then lose one, then win one, then lose one. Lose a couple, and then win one just in time for the algorithm to say, you guys were about to quit the game. I want to give you an easy one so you stay on and play a little bit longer. And it just feels not fun anymore, right? The rewarding part of playing with friends together and being social is just not there. It's honestly easier to play by yourself and just kind of seclude yourself and play the game. Third-party chat services have also cut down on the amount of people in voice chat. Now, I'm not saying those are a bad situation. I use them constantly. Every night I'm using Party Chat or Discord or something along those lines. But either way, we have to recognize that it's definitely hurting the social aspect of that lobby chat, right? Before, you'd have at least 9 or 10 of the 12 people in any given match using their voice comms. Now, maybe you get 1 or 2 people per team, unless somebody starts a real heavy shit talking fest and everyone cues their mics up, you generally don't hear from more than one or two people every single match. And that kind of leads me to my next point, is that every single match you get matched with new people. Lobby disbandment is something that's just new to the newest set of Call of Duties once skill-based matchmaking was implemented. Back in the day, for you younger folks that have not played those older games, we used to play against the same number of people for sometimes 10 or 15 matches in a row unless everybody left, right? The lobbies wouldn't disband unless some connection problem happened or enough people left. So you could literally play with the same people, just mixing up different teams every time. And it kind of formed a sense of camaraderie, right? And obviously that was arguably one of the biggest factors into what made Call of Duty a hyper social experience back in the day, because you were constantly getting rivalries with that guy on the other team that just kept killing you. And then maybe next match he would be on your team and suddenly he's your best friend because you two are dominating the lobby together. There's no more working together with teammates and making friends out of somebody because you happen to win a search and destroy match with them. Because at the end of the match, they're just gone, right? I know myself, I've made a lot of friends just talking together in these Call of Duty lobbies. Back in the day, we'd play 2-3 hours together without being in a party necessarily. We were just in the same lobby. Right? So like I said, some games we'd go up against each other, form a nice little rivalry. Some games we'd play together and kind of form a teammate. And then we'd add each other on Xbox Live or on Steam Friends List. And, a couple weeks in the future, we'd play together. And next thing you know, you've found a genuine friend just from a Call of Duty lobby. And that's no longer possible. And even if you do manage to find someone who's using a mic, which, as we stated, is rare, and they're cool to talk to, and maybe you do build that little rivalry or friendship over the course of the game, they're gone without warning a few seconds after the game ends. Now, yes, I know that there is the recent players tab and the social tab, but let's be honest, those lists are wonky at best, and oftentimes I can't even find the people I just played with. It's like people that I played with 2 weeks ago that I don't even remember anymore. And who's really going to go through all the trouble of, hey, I just played a 10-minute game without one guy, and I guess he seemed kind of cool. Let me go through 10 minutes of menus and horrible UI just to add him and maybe play with him a couple more, right? It just used to be easier back in the day if you were pretty much, assured to play several games with those people and build a stronger bond. And now that's just frankly gone. There's also a greater emphasis nowadays on the unlocking or level grinding or dopamine receptor type content as opposed to just strictly playing. Now, obviously, that means that folks are a little less concerned about playing and winning Call of Duty in some aspects than they are just unlocking a new camo or leveling up the battle pass or trying to complete some really weird challenge to get a weapon or something like that. For example, the slide 15 times and kill 15 people while sliding type challenges that unlocked weapons in previous games, right? So there's less people that are just playing Call of Duty to genuinely play Call of Duty. And generally in those aspects, those type of people won't really be on the comms as much, right? They're not worried about communicating with their teammates to try and take B flag, right? They're more worried about just getting point blank kills with their shotgun in order to get a camo so they can start grinding for Orion. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm happy that Call of Duty has implemented so many level up features and different things like that. But at the end of the day, it does kind of lose that engagement that we had. Back in the day, there was stuff to grind for and there was stuff to unlock, but not nearly in the quantities and, that we have today. And so a lot of us were just more worried about maybe winning the game or getting a good KDR at the end of the day. And thus it opened up more for communication amongst your teammates or that frustrated shit talking at the end of matches with people that ended up in, again, some close relationships formed. And finally, skill-based matchmaking is just making lobbies more stale. So this doesn't have as big of an impact as some of the other stuff that I've discussed in the video, but it definitely does have an impact, right? Your cross-section of players that you play against now is much, much, much smaller than in the past, right? And that may even exclude entire demographics of players who just typically aren't in your current skill set, right? Maybe back in the day, you would play against a 60-year-old grandpa who happened to buy the game because it looked cool when his grandson played it, and he was out there going 1 in 10, but it was super cool to talk to him and you had a good time. I actually remember playing with in one of my gaming clans back in the day on PC. There was a 58-year-old gentleman. His name was Rick. I remember it just like it happened yesterday, that we used to play with constantly, and he ended up being one of our core teammates. Now, he wasn't very good at the game, right? He didn't have great reflexes. He was 58 years old. But it was so fun to talk to him. And it's somebody that I wouldn't really meet outside of Call of Duty. You don't really form friendships with a 58-year-old guy whenever you're 14, 15, 16. But it was fun, and we had a great time with him. And I know for a fact I would never run into Rick in my current lobbies. Never in a million years, right? I'm constantly going up against 14 or 15-year-olds that have, snorted more G Fuel than I care to even know. And they're just hopping around the screen. Like, Rick is never going to be in my lobby, right? And I'm never going to form a bond with people like that. So whenever you narrow down your cross-section of who you're playing with in any given match to just the 10% of players that play like you or are relatively as good as you, it just cuts down on the amount of new people you get to meet. And so that's kind of the last thing that I think is really ruining COD in that aspect. And I feel that nowadays the community theoretically should be more united than ever, right? There's no map packs to kind of divide us, right? Everybody has the same maps. Everyone's in the same playlist. But, with things like Warzone and DMZ sucking part of the community away, and now games, how many games are we on now since 2007? Like 15, 16 games have come out, all with their servers still on. The player base is just more fractured than ever, and the few people that you do get to play against, there's just not as much incentive to be social or have fun with them. Not to mention a lot of players getting banned for seemingly innocent comments that they've made. As long as enough people ban them or, report them, they get banned or shadow banned or have their voice chat disabled, stuff like that. Stuff that maybe you didn't see taken as seriously back in the day. And so there's even less people talking and having, really the want to talk. So these are just a few reasons that I feel that Call of Duty is kind of deviating from the really social aspect. And unfortunately, I think it's to the detriment of the series. I believe that one of the best parts about playing Call of Duty back in the day was making new friends and enjoying that time with teammates and creating rivalries with people and everything like that. And nowadays, that just feels non-existent, and unfortunately it's taken away a lot of the character and a lot of the kind of motivation for playing the game in these recent titles. So that's about wraps it up for what I have here for you today. And now I want to hear what you think. What are some of the reasons that you believe Call of Duty is a little less social than it was before? And tell me some of your favorite stories about meeting people in COD lobbies or Halo lobbies or really any gaming lobby. And, let me know about some friends that you've made while playing online games. So that about wraps it up here today. Once again, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.